The ages, J Dog. It really was. Watched a ton of it, and every minute yesterday, every second. And good for Rory. He's quite popular. The fans love him for the most part. I know not everyone does, but that's the way life is. But what a show of grit. He hung in there. He really did. I think Bryson DeChambeau just ran out of steam, and Rory just had what it took in the end. Hope you had a good weekend. Weather wasn't great, but as we get going, today's a nice one, huh, J Dog? Nice. You're back, by the way. Great, tremendous week you had in Cleveland last week. Well, but you had fun. All right. Nice day out there today. Got some sunshine back and warmer temperatures. A lot going on. We're going to talk about some of the crazy driving out there. That story on the Spalding Turnpike over the weekend involving a woman who would not stop for police, and trooper had to actually fire some shots at the vehicle. That's being investigated, of course, as they all are when situations like that. Then you had the other situation. So we're gonna man was arrested. There was multiple New Hampshire towns. I mean, we just had the New Hampshire State Police last Thursday in our studio, just talking about how crazy some people are driving out there. Speeds well over 100 miles per hour and not moving over. Just unbelievable. We'll come back to that. Hey, got a packed show for you on this Monday morning. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning up in the coast of Maine. We got you covered, WTSN, AM, FM. Good morning, Lakes region. Additional signals up there, including 98.3 HD2, WTPO 1077 FM. Good morning, New England. Good morning, worldwide. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the pulse of an H. Donor towns. Haven't heard about that in a while. We're going to have an important guest coming up again this morning, one of our regular contributors, former Senate president, slamming this idea. So you're already probably, chances are you feel like your property taxes are already too high in the town or city you live in. They're probably already too high. How would you like to start having some of your property tax dollars being subjectively sent to other towns? So you're paying property taxes for another town. Yeah, well, we'll see where that goes. Also coming up, Greenland. Interesting coverage last night on 60 Minutes. I happened to be watching that after the Masters, and we'll come back and talk about who the first president or how long this goes back of trying to buy Greenland. And also, we're going to have some of the other news talk, including more on tariffs and all of the above. But we'll tell you more of this as we get into the morning. One of the big stories coming out of the weekend is the fact that after the big news was that just, J-Dog, you were off when former Governor Sununu came in and made the news on my show here first, Good Morning New Hampshire, the pulse of an H, that he's not running for the U.S. Senate. So that kind of would unfreeze the field, one would think, right? Unfreeze the field. And the fact is, if anything, it's sort of done the opposite. We're hearing that there's other than Scott Brown, and maybe we'll have him on the show this week. He's run before, said he was going to run again, no matter who runs. He's been rather quiet in terms of stoking the fires after the big Sununu announcement last Tuesday. So the big story coming out of the weekend behind the scenes for you is not a lot of big names lining up to the run for the U.S. Senate as a Republican. Chris Pappas already in as the Democrat, and we'll hear from him as well, I believe, this week on a VA issue that he spoke out about that I caught my eye in a good way, that I think he's concerned about, trying to get veterans to be able to stay in their homes for care. Somehow that program's going away. So Chris Pappas already out in that U.S. Senate race. We're hearing Maggie Goodlander, maybe the door's still open, but it's not open very wide. Sources are telling this show she's being heavily courted to run for the U.S. Senate, and she may well end up running. But right now, there's probably a better chance that she'll stay in that second congressional district seat or race in the midterms. But what about Republicans running in the U.S. Senate? In addition to Scott Brown, not a lot of big names we're hearing. So that's one of the stories. Also, the first congressional district. What's happening there? Who's running for that? So we'll come back to, other than Maura Sullivan, a Democrat, who's running on the Republican side. So we'll come back to all that and all the above. Hey, J-Dog, it's interesting. Speaking of the Masters, I was talking to a buddy this morning before the show. Here's some sports commentary. I think a lot of other major league sports could learn on how, I know the Masters is a once-a-year event, a tradition like none other. But boy, do they do it right. They do it right. No cell phones out there, J-Dog. No cell phones on the course if you're a fan. Isn't that amazing? They have pay phones scattered throughout the grounds if you need to call home. No pay phones. They have a dress code. I don't know if you knew that, J-Dog. No shorts. Yeah. Isn't that amazing? No hats back wearing your hat backwards. Yeah. Yeah, and then the other one is, how about food and beverage? A couple bucks for a chicken salad sandwich, like a buck 50, not 12.50, or let's say a cold, how about I'll just throw this out there, a light beer, a Miller Lite or something, or a glass of Heineken instead of $24 like at a major league event, 5 or 6 bucks. The Masters traditions. I love it when all the political woke stuff was happening and people were even questioning the name of the Masters and all this stuff and how they had to change. And I forget who the chairman, if it's the same guy who tees off the honorary when they do the tee off with Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, Tom Watson. He said, "Look at we're not changing. Good luck. Try and boycott us, dude. We got enough money. We don't need you. We're not changing our traditions." And the Masters is a great example of how tradition can be a very good thing, including little things like picking the annual dinner, the green jacket, the traditions, and Butler cabin after the former champion Scotty Scheffler giving the green jacket to Rory. Traditions, not a bad thing in life. And how about history and some commentary now that I'm getting fired up on a Monday morning? And by the way, tomorrow morning, we're going to hear from outgoing Commissioner of Education in New Hampshire, Frank Edeblue, right here on Good Morning New Hampshire, the Pulse of an Age. His thoughts looking back and looking ahead. But how about I talk about tradition? How about history? How about history? So I shared with you last night, a little bit after the Masters, I'm watching 60 Minutes. President Donald Trump's favorite network now, not. In fact, I think he dislikes CBS more than CNN. And he blasted them. And I got to tell you, I watched the package last night. I watched a story on Greenland. They sent a correspondent to Greenland. I wanted to see the beautiful homes there, the different colors, the icebergs. And it was this story on Greenland. And the feeling in the story to me watching it, and probably to everyone else who watches it, but they don't have the viewers they used to have. So the audience is a lot smaller because of political activism. The feeling in the story was that Donald Trump is sort of like out of control and he wants to buy Greenland. He wants to acquire Greenland. And they go to the people there. Of course, no one likes the idea of someone trying to buy your place if you don't want them to. But a couple people, they're open to it. They've been they've been under the Danish, Copenhagen, Denmark for hundreds of years. And they make it look like this is like Trump's the first American president. And then, did you know this, by the way, if I was going to ask you this? Does anyone out there, speaking of not knowing your history, does anyone out there remember the name Harry Truman? I'm going to give you a minute to think, because today with this politically charged environment, a lot of people are so full of their political venom, they have no ability to see clearly at all. They can't even talk to you rationally if they're so fired up in their politics. So let me just share with you a little bit of history. Harry Truman succeeded FDR. President Harry Truman is the Democrat president who ended World War II by using nuclear bombs on two civilian cities, Nagasaki and Hiroshima, in Japan, to end the war. And public opinion wanted him to do that. America had paid a great bloody price in World War II. It had gone on long. We wanted to end it. We had lost our survival patience level with Japan hanging in it. We ended it real quick with that. That's Truman. Do you know a year later after World War II? Do you know what American president offered Copenhagen in Denmark $100 million in gold to buy Greenland? Do you know? It wasn't Donald Trump. It was Harry Truman in 1946. Many of our smart leaders have wanted Greenland because of strategic importance. And today in the Arctic, if you look at the military capability, the base, and the missiles, Russia doesn't even need to fire a nuclear ICBM if they want to go across and over Greenland. Greenland is a strategic hotspot in the world. And I remember going to the U.S. Army War College as a civilian in the National Security Seminar. It was a high honor in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And the general who was hosting us, 3-star general, told us when he asked, what's our number one adversary? And a lot of people were saying China, and they are. But he said, why do places like Greenland matter, the Arctic Circle? Because China's up there. Russia's up there. We have to be there. So everyone in this 60 Minutes piece last night, it's like Trump's crazy to want to buy Greenland. They don't even understand the strategic importance of Greenland for our security as a nation. And if there's a way to somehow get more of a foothold in Greenland, it's good for you and your kids going to bed at night, whether or not you know that or want to admit it. Harry Truman comes out of World War II. President Truman comes out of World War II. And the Soviets at the end of World War II to get Hitler in Berlin became kind of like unwilling allies of ours to come in from the, that side after Hitler had done the winter invasion of Soviet Union. So we basically, after World War II, fighting World War II, the Japanese, Germany, Truman wants to buy Greenland for $100 million in gold. Back channel deal to buy Greenland. Because he said the strategic importance coming out of World War II in a Soviet Union that's going to be more empowered and entering a whole new stage of potential conflict with the United States. We need Greenland to be safe. We, the United States. Harry Truman, 1946. Wind the clock forward, 2025. Donald Trump is crazy for wanting to buy Greenland. Not. Some commentary, 603-228-2080. Donor towns. Could your property taxpayers be going to another community, property tax dollars going to another community other than the one you live in? Not so, says former Senate President Jeb Bradley. Hey, Google, hey, Wax, play the Pulse of an Ace. Jack Heath, J-Dog, and the board's back in a few. Yeah, who would have ever thought that after the great years of Tiger Woods at the Masters with those crowds behind him and the sinking of a putt or bringing one in around the trees from 170 yards within 3 feet of the cup or whatever would be replaced, but I gotta tell you, Rory McIlroy yesterday, there's some gonna be images that are gonna go down in golf history, including him beating Justin Rose in the, that one-hole playoff, with the putt, in that shot he put inside Justin's and then going down. I said to someone I was watching that with it, if you're a tennis person, you remember Bjorn Borg and some of the matches he had with John McEnroe and others when Borg would win Wimbledon, I think 6 times, he would just fall down on his knees and put his head on the ground and just start crying in joy, and that's what Rory did yesterday on the green. It was amazing to watch and probably one of the best Masters in many years. That's my thought. All right, could donor towns be a thing of the future versus the past? This was brought to our attention on Friday by one of our regular President Jeb Bradley joins us on Fridays. And you just think of paying your property tax dollars in your city or town right now, and a lot of people tell you they're not cheap at all. They're too high, if anything. Imagine if some of your property your tax dollars for your town were going to another town. Senator Bradley alerted us to this on Friday. I don't think he likes the idea, and he's coming back on a Monday to talk about this for the legislature. We've got a packed show for you. Good morning, Senator. Good, thanks. Hope you had a good weekend. Tell us about your concern here. Do you think the Senate will kill it or not? Yeah, it's kind of strange. You pay a lot on property taxes. I don't know many communities. Some obviously are very few, but some are known to be, less expensive per whatever your property valuation than others. But you're paying a lot of money, and you think it would go to your town, and the idea would go into a pool to pay for another town. I remember many many years ago, the donor town thing seemed very subjective and unfair to me. It's almost like redistribution of wealth, just personally. And if you'd rather keep the money, and you should be able to build up a surplus if your town is fortunate enough, but keep your money local. You think that would be the New Hampshire way? Right. Yeah. 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 So if someone's listening and they're concerned about this, they probably can contact their local state senator and let their feelings be known, correct? Yeah. Yeah. Portsmouth mayor. Yeah. Right. All right. We're going to check it out. Well, thank you. And it's HB 739. Kill the donor town thing. All right, Senator Bradley. Thanks for keeping us in the light on this one. Thank you. Interesting stuff. All right, so you can fall and you should fall. I meant to ask the senator this, but I'm wondering. I would think, but I don't know that Governor Kelly Ayotte, if this ever passed the Senate, would probably veto this. I would think. I don't know that. I'm just speculating. Just speculating. If she did, I don't know if it could override or not. You need two-thirds. All right, we're going to take a break, come back, talk some tariffs. Doug Tengden going a little bit early this morning, J-Dog, next on our worldmarketadvisors.com on our great partners and sponsors. Please don't forget, mark your calendar. Just a few weeks, May 7th. We go 12 hours, my 11th annual 12-hour radiothon, our Vinny Media and our team here at the Pulse of an H. 12 hours for our veterans, part of Veterans Count. Our Veterans Count, part of Easter Seals. 12 hours, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. FedPoint, our presenting sponsor, once again, going to raise awareness, support our veterans. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of stuff falling through the cracks these days. A lot of stuff. We've done a pretty terrible job on supporting and having therapies that help with mental health, anxiety, depression, PTSD. We're going to talk about the programs working and how that care coordinator program with Veterans Count, part of Easter Seals, is working, and it can help veterans and their families. May 7th, my annual Make 12 Hours Count for Veterans Count. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Back in a few. You know, the the interesting thing with all the yelling and screaming and I don't know, keying of cars that sound like Tesla and all the stuff going on, hands off this, hands off that, all the noise and the divisiveness, it's hard to have any perspective or context sometime. Elon Musk became a pretty unpopular player in the Trump administration recently with a lot of people. And people vilified Donald Trump and Musk for Doge, Department of Government Efficiency, for cutting back on the federal employee side, federal workers, cutting back on waste, taxpayer dollars. And no one on the network, the TV network side, ever stopped to tell you how many federal jobs Democrat President Bill Clinton cut and terminated with buyouts and other ways during his in 1993 to 1999. 377,000 federal jobs cut, slashed. Far, 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 far. Let me say far, far more than Trump and Musk. 377,000 jobs cut. But you didn't know that, did you? How about that 60 Minutes piece? I was watching it myself. I'm not reading what Trump said after on Truth Social, whatever he posted, but watching this package on Greenland with 60 Minutes, and you wonder why the political activism is destroying the viewership of TV news. Political activism, not journalism. Watching this piece, it was so anti-Donald Trump for talking about acquiring, buying Greenland. That's what he's been doing, is just talking about it, right? Just talking about it. It's driving everyone crazy. So 60 Minutes doesn't like the idea Donald Trump wants to buy or acquire Greenland. Number one, they don't really understand why an American president would want Greenland. They don't understand the strategic military importance in the Arctic Circle of having that, having more base or presence there for air defense, missile systems, and all that. And they make it look like Trump is the first American president to want Greenland. And they don't tell you through history in America, this is not a new phenomenon. This is not new. Trump is just serious about it and may do it. And I hope he does, because I'll sleep better at night. And so should you, if you could put your politics aside for a moment. If you knew what was going on in the Arctic Circle with China and Russia, you'd probably be concerned. But guess what? This is what they won't tell you. No context, no balance. World War II, do you remember it at all? I know a lot of people forget history. They don't think it matters. I think it matters a whole heck of a lot. Do you remember World War II? Now, I know a lot of you do, and some of you may have had loved ones that served, or parents or grandparents, but I'm talking to the younger, let's just say some of the loudmouth folks out there. Do you remember World War II? If you're under 60 years old, do you know your history on World War II? Do you know anything about World War II? Do you know who ended World War II? What American president? It's sad. If I ask this quiz question at Princeton University, I only throw them out there for a reason, or Harvard, if I ask the class, what American president was at the helm when we ended World War II, when the Japanese surrendered? A lot of people might say, "Oh, no, wait a minute. Churchill he was the prime minister of England. Let me think for a minute. Oh, was it FDR? No. Who was it? No, it was Harry Truman. President Truman succeeded FDR after he passed. Truman, first American president, first leader ever using nuclear weapons, mostly on civilian cities in Japan, to end that war, to break the back of Japan. And it worked. Heavy price, but it worked. Nagasaki, Hiroshima, you may have heard about it. I don't know if you do, but you might want to look that up. So Harry Truman comes out of World War II. And in 1946, the year after, less than 12 months later, what do you think the one thing the American president wants to do? Worried about the Soviet Union, who became a very kind of reluctant ally to go into Berlin to finish off Hitler and the Nazis. But the war was on two theaters. Pacific, I don't know if you remember a thing called Pearl Harbor. That's when FDR got us into this after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor to keep us out of the Pacific, the United States. And then we got onto the continent of Europe and Normandy. I don't know if anyone out there knows this stuff, top of the head. So Truman comes out of World War II so concerned about the Soviet Union, so concerned, he wants Greenland. Not Donald Trump. Not Donald Trump. Harry Truman, 1946, wants Greenland badly for strategic reasons, for having a base presence there. Now, we ended up getting a base presence there through an agreement, but Denmark been controlling Greenland, I think, for what, almost 300 years. So he offers $100 million in gold. Harry Truman, $100 million in gold to buy Greenland from Copenhagen. Did you know that? Did you know that? Does anyone out there know that Trump's not the first American president to talk about acquiring Greenland? And everyone thought he's off his rocker. Oh, Trump doesn't know what he's doing. Wants to acquire Greenland. Leave that little place alone up there with its glacial icebergs. Leave them alone with their pretty red and green and light blue houses. Yeah, they're a peaceful, small place, but they are incredibly strategic in the Arctic Circle because China's there and Russia's there. In the water with nuclear subs and above the air, missiles, flyovers, test flights in the Arctic. So it would be good for us strategically if we had more control in Greenland. So Trump, crazy or crazy like a fox. But you wouldn't know this, would you? Because of the media today and all the yelling and screaming that everything Trump does or wants to do is he's Trump. So a lot of people won't even understand the strategic importance of Greenland. And I'm going to share a story with you. This is not off 60 Minutes because this is above their pay grade. Trust me. When I was invited to go to the U.S. Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania for the National Security Seminar as a civilian, General Abrams was our hosting 3-star general, General Abrams. And you were embedded with these officers of the National Security Seminar for their executive final course and their graduation to go on to senior leadership. And there wasn't just Americans, there were allies there. And when I was able to break away or have lunch or talk with the general, and then in the auditorium, you were given a mic when he was lecturing or different speakers before your breakout sessions. And he asked a question, but I read his brief and he was not happy that a lot of his colonels in the audience hadn't read it. But he said, he's talking about China. And he said, what do you think keeps me up at night, to the whole audience of colonels and military members? And I'm sitting there with a handful of civilians. And a lot of people didn't really know the answer. And I put my hand up. I said, the Arctic Circle. And a lot of people looked at me like I was nuts. They were saying Russia, Putin, North Korea, China. He goes, yeah, it's the Arctic Circle. How did you know that, son? He says that. He calls me son. I go, I read your brief, sir. They go, oh, you did your homework. He goes, it keeps me up at night because if you knew what was going on in the Arctic Circle, this was a number of years ago, folks, before Donald Trump was in his second term. So Greenland is important. I don't know if you know that. For your kids and your grandkids. I don't know if you knew that. So fly all the flags you want, scream up and down, say all the things you want, but know your history. Go back to World War II and why Greenland is important. And don't just think Donald Trump's the first president to come down the pike that wants to buy Greenland, okay? Harry Truman, $100 million in gold he offered Copenhagen for Greenland for the same strategic reasons that Trump wants it. So sometimes this is where the noise blocks the oxygen that allows your brain to work. Some commentary. All right. Speaking of President Trump, tariffs, smartphones, round, whatever. The Trump team was on some of the airways this weekend trying to justify a lot of this. Doug Tengden going a little bit early. WorldMarketPerspectives.com. Doug, good morning. Good. You knew that Truman wanted to buy Greenland, right? Okay. Yeah, we got a base there, but but $100 million in gold was a lot of money back then. And you know what? Most people in these college classrooms today wouldn't even tell you who was president after World War II. I don't even think they knew who Truman was. Anyway, all right, tell us about tariffs. Well, again, here we go this week. What do markets do? I haven't checked. What are the markets doing this morning? Interesting. All right, Doug. Thanks for going a little bit early. Anything else? Well, it's interesting because a lot of people want those rates to drop a little bit to buy more. All right. Thank you, Doug. All right. Nice weather out there for a Monday. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. J Dog on the boards. Jack Heath. Back in a moment. It just was kind of this weekend, but a great weekend for the Masters. I haven't seen any numbers, but CBS actually, I believe, had the Masters. And I got to tell you, there were a lot more people watching the Masters than there were 60 Minutes last night. It's just amazing how politically active some of the media is nationally instead of being journalists. And they wonder why people are not watching. It really is baffling to me sometimes. You get people like I don't watch it anymore. I used to watch the weekend stuff sometimes when classy people like Cokie Roberts, Tim Russert, Brett Hume, and others. But with George Stephanopoulos, is he still being paid by ABC? What a sham that he's able to keep going. He's not even he's a talking about political activism. He's not a journalist. Oh my goodness. So it's actually funny. But good for him. Make the money. Go make the money, Georgie. Make the money. Why not? What is it with people driving? I don't know the details, but if you heard of it was 1 or 1:30 in the morning on the Spalding Turnpike. This vehicle, woman's driving south, Rochester, Dover border. You heard Mike Pomp in our morning information center with the story driving south. Wouldn't stop her vehicle. I safe bet. Maybe she was speeding. We had two of the commanders in our studio Thursday for our state police segment, weekly segment brought to you by AutoFair and the team at AutoFair. We had two of the commanders talking about how people are not moving over when they see like a broken down vehicle with blue lights, yellow lights, red lights, not moving. Tow trucks, they're not moving over. They're so distracted. But the other one is speeding. What did the J-Dog, you weren't here, one of the lieutenants, I think it was Chris Storm, said there's like a 232% increase. The aircraft is found with people driving over 100 miles per hour from like a year. I don't know what the comparative is, but a huge, huge increase of people drive. I got to tell you, I have to tell you, I've been operating a motor vehicle since I got my license and since I was going to college out of state in Vermont at UVM. I've been driving on 89, 95 to Maine, my first TV job in Maine. I've been driving a lot since my whole life. And I got to tell you, in all those years, I don't know if I ever, and I had some nice vehicles, new vehicles, fast vehicles. I don't know if I ever went much above, and I'd catch myself if you're zoning out in the middle of the day, you're going on a highway, and all of a sudden you're getting over 80 miles per hour. That's kind of easy to do, believe it or not. 75, 80, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I better slow down. There might be a state police, a trooper up here, and I'm going to get a big ticket. I'll slow myself down. You feel it. I don't know how anyone. And the lieutenant was telling us, some people say, oh, well, I wasn't aware I was driving 126 miles per hour. You weren't aware? That'd be like taking your bed out of your bedroom, putting it in the backyard during a rainstorm, saying, oh, I didn't know it was raining out, officer. I didn't know I was going 120. What do you mean you didn't know you were going almost 130 miles? Of course you do. And then I think it was Lieutenant Storm told us it might have been Lieutenant Joe Ronke, head of Troop A, the other day on the show, that a trooper stopped one person, a young guy, for going well over 100 miles per hour, stopped him, ticketed him, fined him, made the decision to let him go, but he gave him, I'm sure, a good stiff, got to get into court, big ticket. And then another trooper stopped the same guy for going 100 again. I mean, what is this? It's nuts. Now, I don't know the details in the Spalding Turnpike. Turned out the Attorney General's office is investigating because a state trooper shot a woman, presumably operating the vehicle, who wouldn't stop. They had to use those spikes in the road to stop her. This will be fully investigated. Maybe she was using her vehicle as a weapon. I don't know the circumstances. I guess she's in stable condition. I don't know any of the circumstances, so please, I do not. But I'm just looking at the headlines. And then there was another one. How about this? This guy, multiple towns. Chichester man was arrested over the weekend after leading police through multiple communities. State police reporting this morning, this arrest. The pursuit entered, Chichester, Pittsfield. Troopers took over, according to state police, was terminated for safety reasons, but a short time later, according to, and WMUR has a story on their site, the vehicle was found abandoned at Tilton Hill Road in Pittsfield. So there you have it. Multiple towns running from police. The suspect was arrested. They had to get a canine tracking to locate a 31-year-old suspect at Chichester who was found on Bow Lake Road in Barnstead and arrested. Reckless conduct, disobeying police officer, operating as a certified habitual offender, reckless operating, and others. So the driving of some people is getting worse, not better. Now, I don't understand it. Maybe people just don't even care about their own life. But what about the life of others on the road? What about the life of a kids coming from a soccer practice and, and they're just doing their homework in the back seat and you're a bonehead driving like a lunatic. Well, they should, because I got to tell you right now, that's a heavy cross to bear when you hurt someone else. But you're right, J Dog is so selfless and stupid. But it's just not only reckless. It's malicious. It's like, people, what are you doing? And I see it and I just choose sometimes not to engage. You don't want them out encouraging road rage out there. But how about when you're just driving? And this time of year, there's a lot of highway work, a lot of road work. So, sometimes the road narrows down to one. You got the paving crews out there. They got the signs up. They got the markers. You slow down. You come down to one lane from two. And right before that, when you're supposed to get into one lane, and for a mile and a half, it says traffic merging ahead, one lane, move over. And there's all these signs to do it. And some knucklehead is flying by the breakdown lane going ahead of you. And then when they see the opening, and there's not even enough opening in front of your vehicle for their car, they'll cut right in front of you to get ahead of you. And it saves them no time at all in the long or short run, but they'll cut right in front of you. And if you didn't, and you don't really, the only reason why I stop versus just, letting them hit my vehicle and deal with this, I like my pickup truck. If I didn't like it, I'd say, go ahead and hit it because you're going to pay for this. But no, they just drive it. People are just, but again, why are you surprised, right? Look around you. But the sad thing is 8 or 9 out of 10 people are good, responsible people and they drive responsibly. But it's these 1 or 2. Imagine being a police officer today. You have no idea who you're stopping. If they're going to try and run you over, or if you're at a move over spot. Now you have to expand the move over law in the legislature right now because for anyone, a civilian, because people aren't even stopping when there's a car broken down the highway. They're going right by and clipping the door. Nuts, lunacy, gone nuts with some people. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse Vintage. Come back. We'll talk about some of the new laws of the State House. Anna Brown, Citizens Count, up next.